So content ideation is another one that clients often come to us and they're like, well, we kind of know that we want our content to drive page views, but we have no idea how to do that. And so what I'll often give them is a question around like, where in the funnel are you trying to drive results? The idea of a marketing funnel is at the top of the funnel, you have your broadest reach and you are trying to just build awareness that your company exists. When you say I'm building top of funnel, it means I'm building awareness that we are a thing and an option for people. It may even be, if you're in a new space, like an emergent piece of tech, it may just be awareness that the problem exists, which can be really hard. And that cycle is really long, but awareness is the top of the funnel. A little down further, you get into the consideration phase, which means they know you exist, but they also know 2 or 3 of your competitors exist, or they know the DIY option exists. And how do you compare? How are you better? Why are you going to save them time? Content that drives the consideration phase can be things like integration guides that show how your tool solves a certain problem with another tool set, or things like buy versus build guides, which are really popular as well. Like, here's the step-by-step how you'd build your own SMS texting platform. And then here's how easy it is to use with our tool, things like that. And then the purchase decision is like, okay, they've kind of decided you're the right one. They think you might be. They maybe get on a call with sales if it's a more enterprisey company, or if it's a developer-related one, maybe they've signed up for a free trial and now you're trying to push them into paid. There's also content that can do this. And that content is generally going to be the kind of thing that shows the advantages of moving to a paid version, or is kind of a deeper, like towards the documentation type content. We'll go into that more in a bit. And then finally, retention is all about keeping or upselling existing customers to your platform. So again, there's different kinds of content strategies that map what different areas in the funnel or different stages in the marketing funnel. And knowing where you want to aim is really important because it's going to help you define the strategy you can take. And again, knowing your goals helps you define where in the funnel you need to go. So content ideation strategies that sort of match places in the funnel. At the top of the funnel, the most top of funnel types of content ideation strategies are generally going to be thought leadership, which we'll go into in a bit as what that means, and keyword research. I say they're most top of funnel because generally speaking, the most successful companies that are focused on keyword driven articles, SEO driven articles, or like this high level thought leadership, where's our industry going type pieces, are generally aiming at just increasing top of funnel traffic from either Google or places like Hacker News and Reddit, sort of those clickbaity type places that get lots and lots of traffic, but it's hard to know if any of that traffic is really qualified or interested in buying your product. But you might be able to drop some awareness on them. So it's still important to have this kind of content, but the payback period is longer on this. Down further into the funnel, you get stuff like community research. We'll go into that in a second, but basically it's going out into the community, seeing what people are talking about, whether they're talking about your tool and competitors and things like that, and how you can kind of slot yourself into those conversations. And then further down, there's sales collateral and augmenting your documentation. These are actually pretty closely related, and it sort of depends. I would use these almost interchangeably depending on the organization and the way you do sales. So we'll talk about the differentiation in just a bit. But basically, these are kinds of content that help when an engineer is actually likely to use your tool, and they're just checking all the boxes to make sure you've got the documentation they need, make sure you do all the integrations they need, make sure you work in their framework and language the best that they need, and things like that. So again, we'll go into each of these in specifics here as we go, but that's kind of a high level of how to think about those different ones. And I'll just caveat all this with, of course, there are thought leadership pieces you could do that are more aimed down in the consideration and purchase phase. And there's probably keyword research you could do more towards the consideration phase, especially if you're in an established market where you're not just trying to build awareness that your solution exists. Again, this is generalizations. Okay, so thought leadership, I kind of define this as like sharing your worldview. This is one kind of content that we've tried to steer clear of at Draft.dev because we work with third-party writers, and sure, they're great software engineers. They may have some opinions on the industry, but it's likely they don't match up 100% with the founder of your company and where you think the industry is going. There's cases where that's, obviously maybe they do, but in rare cases. And also after talking to dozens of our clients about this, I found the most successful thought leadership content strategies, they have to be written by people at the company or people very close to the company, because it's very hard to share your worldview with a third-party writer and then get them to actually push that out in the same way that you would. But typically, thought leadership content is really powerful pieces of content. You don't have to do a lot of it, a high volume of it, to get good results, but you do have to just try it and be consistent. And a lot of companies really struggle with this because getting a CEO or a CTO or a head of DevRel even to write a thought leadership piece can be really tough, wherever you sit in the marketing stack. So a couple things they're good for. Shareability. These are the kind of pieces that go blow up on Reddit and Hacker News. Maybe they get shared widely in your niche community community and your newsletters. They're good at attracting new readers and backlinks. We actually have an example of this as a client that is doing primarily keyword-driven content. So most of their content is SEO focused, bottom or top and middle of funnel, but they do one or two thought leadership kind of clickbait type pieces a month. I say clickbait, I don't mean that disparagingly. Like, it's actually really interesting, good content, but it's not based on a keyword. It's not based on any sort of prior research to the space. They just kind of know their community and they know what might resonate. They'll write a couple of those a month. And what happens is those pieces attract a lot of attention and a lot of backlinks that then raise the domain authority they have and raise the ability for them to rank for other keywords in the future. So this works really nicely in tandem with SEO driven content. And a lot of people sort of think it's either or. I think in reality, most content strategy should be a mix of different things. And you just have to define that mix based, again, on your goals and where in the funnel you want to hit people. These are also good for filling your retargeting audience. Paid ads towards developers is kind of a controversial strategy because some people point out, and rightly so, that a lot of developers use ad blockers. Therefore, putting ad dollars into dev audiences can be kind of wasteful, and it's probably true. But retargeting or remarketing, whichever you call it, is really unique in that you're targeting people who've already been to your site once. And so you're not going to spend nearly as many wasted ad dollars on the lower quality clicks that you might if you're just doing broad keyword ads. So retargeting can be really nice if you get a really interesting thought leadership piece that kind of targets your target audience, but it's pretty top of funnel. You can then retarget to kind of push them further down the funnel. The downside to this is that, again, with this thought leadership content, it's generally low purchase intent. Rarely does a thought leadership piece have broad appeal and like a high chance that people are ready to buy your product, but it does build awareness. Also, it's really unpredictable. A client that I mentioned who's doing a mix of thought leadership and SEO driven content, probably 1 in every 3 or 4 of their pieces like really goes kind of semi-viral, and then a lot of them just kind of fall flat. Now, there's some people who are better than that. Some people are way worse at that. So just put the asterisk of not every piece is going to be a winner, no matter how experienced you are in writing them or promoting them. The next content ideation strategy that's worth talking about is keyword research. So if you come from a traditional content marketing background, you're probably very familiar with SEO and keyword research. But if you're more from a DevRel background, what I find is people are more skeptical or don't know anything about keyword research. So I think it's important to point out. And we have a guide that I'll share in the additional resources about how we do the keyword research for clients and topic clusters, which is a really effective way of interlinking and building up a keyword research strategy. So if you ever have questions about that and you want to do it on your own, definitely let me know. I'm happy to share. Keyword research is good for people in the awareness and consideration phase. So top of funnel again. Generally speaking, what you do with keyword research is you aim to get traffic based on targeting a specific keyword in your article or a set of keywords even. And you want it to rank in the top, say, 5 of Google so that you get a number of clicks from that. And then ideally the piece of content, in order to rank well, has to both get backlinks and be a really high quality, good piece of content. When you're doing keyword research, you look for high traffic volume, high intent to purchase ideally, and a low competition score. So basically it's like not many other people ranking for that keyword in your space. It's really hard to find all 3 of those. And so you kind of have to decide how to move the levers to get a blend of content. Again, this is a whole talk on its own, but it's really good for building domain authority, which allows you to rank for things later on. It's really good for showcasing the general industry knowledge you have, for getting your solution to rank. A really common strategy in developer keyword research that I'll share that I've seen tons of clients use, and I highly encourage, if you are a tool that is kind of like a new paradigm shifting tool, you're kind of trying to build your own space around you, what you want to do is target the thing you replaced. So for example, if you built a tool that was like a better version of SQLite databases, instead of targeting your cool tool's name everywhere, which has no search traffic, nobody knows it exists, what you would do is you'd write really good content around how to use SQLite, how to improve the performance of SQLite. And then in every one of those pieces, you would mention, oh, and also we exist and we're a better version of SQLite or whatever. This is a really effective way to do this because often you're targeting technologies that are a little more out of date and not as competitive. And so you can target these old tech and kind of push your new tech in at the end as a good like call to action or sort of next step for people. Really great for building awareness. The downside, again, to keyword research, it's hard to tell the purchase intent. And a lot of times you have to sacrifice purchase intent if you want high volume of traffic. The other thing that's unfortunate in keyword research, especially in a highly technical field like ours, is there's always going to be more traffic on the entry level and kind of like general terms. So what I mean by that is often clients will come to us and say like, look, we want to be number one in Google for terms like, I don't know, deep learning, AI strategies, or security in deep learning, or something like that. That's like super niche. And they also will say, okay, we want to be number one for that, which, okay, great, we could do that. But we also want to get 100,000 page views a month in the next 6 months. Okay, those two things are mutually exclusive. There just aren't 100,000 people a month looking for those terms. And so we either need to broaden out the funnel to meet that number of page views goal, or we tighten up and we focus in and don't worry about how little traffic we're getting, but just worried about how directed it is. So it's up to you to decide where you want to fall in that, but you almost can never do both perfectly. Community research is similar to keyword research, but a little less predictable. What I mean by that is with community research, what we'll typically do is go out to places like Stack Overflow, Reddit, different Slack groups, different niche blogs and communities, Medium posts, and things like that, and kind of see what people in the space are talking about. So again, we'll go back to that SQLite sort of example. If there's a lot of people out there talking about using SQLite on the edge, which is, I know that I've seen that a lot pop up on Hacker News and things, we might target content around SQLite in the edge or alternatives to SQLite for the edge, et cetera. This is really a good way to find hidden gems and spot real world trends. It's also, as a marketer, a good way to get in touch with your community in general, whether you use this as a way to come up with content ideas or not. I think it's just generally good practice to know what your communities are talking about. The downside is it can be medium to low purchase intent. Sometimes it's a little higher, but often you're not exactly sure these people are ready to buy. You're just trying to target the right communities. And then it can be really hard to determine how much volume of traffic you could actually get from a piece about, say, like alternatives to SQLite for the edge, because there may not be keyword volume from any of the big tools around that term, but it might be getting talked about a lot. So it's less predictable than keyword research. Sales collateral is another great use case for content. And again, this kind of, when you think about ROI from a standpoint of just generating revenue, sales collateral is one of the best ways to push content that actually generates revenue on a short period of time. So what I mean by that is sales collateral can be any kind of content that helps your sales or marketing teams close deals. So take people from either in the sales funnel and in the consideration phase into actually bought your product, or going from free trial into actually paid for the first team usage of it. So there's some ways you can do this. For example, if you're making an enterprise sale, often your primary buyer might be like an IT head or more of a business leader, but they might have to get buy-in from the DevOps engineers who are going to go implement your tool, or the software engineers that are going to go integrate it in with their existing software. And when that's the case, those people can become blockers just as easily as your business leader that's sitting up there that you're talking to primarily on the phone. So for sales teams, what they'll often ask us to do is create the collateral that would help engineers go from this tool seems kind of cool to, oh, this will actually work in our use case. And there's a great integration guide on how to use it for our use case. So again, with this, you can set goals like, I want 10 pieces of content. They're going to help us close 50 deals we wouldn't have closed without those pieces of content. And you go to your sales team and you ask them what piece of content would help you close these deals or overcome these objections from engineers. They've probably got a lot of ideas there. So this is really high ROI good content to do if you're a sales driven org. If you're more of a product marketing driven organization or product-led growth org, then what this looks like is more the sorts of content that show people the advantages of your paid features. So for example, if engineers can use your tool for free on an individual, a solo basis, but in order to get a team version, they need to pay, you would show in your tutorials and in different use cases, here's how you can solve X big problem with your team on our paid plan, and then send that over in emails or in other collateral, maybe in your Slack groups that you have, whatever community-based content places you have. It's a pretty soft sell because you're basically just sharing helpful content. But if people see that and they know, oh, there is a team plan, oh, this could be useful at my work, it's not just a hobby thing, it could be really great to drive some conversions as well. The last one I'll talk about is augmenting your documentation. And again, this kind of rides the line between sales collateral and augmenting your docs are very, very similar. And I hope it's not too confusing. But the idea here is, how can we show engineers, not just tell them that our tool works with these other integrations in theory, or maybe give them the very high level API calls to make, but actually show them a step-by-step tutorial that goes into the depth of it. A good example of this that we've had a lot of clients come to us with is, if you are a tool like a code coverage testing tool, let's say, and your tool integrates with CI/CD platforms and programming languages and frameworks and GitHub, and you need to show the integrations between all 3 or 4 of those things, then building out tutorials that show engineers, here's how to do it with GitHub Actions and Python. Here's how to use our tool with Jenkins and Java, or Jenkins and Scala. And you can kind of go through the list, you iterate like this with this. Those kind of tutorials are really helpful for pushing engineers to use your product, but also it helps them understand that you were there and you're there to support their use case. So it can help also in the consideration phase. Typically, though, when you come up with these kind of ideas, don't expect them to drive tens of thousands of new page views from people who are not familiar with your product. It wouldn't make sense that they would. So you have to know your users and know the limitations of this kind of content. I don't want you to think this is going to drive tons and tons of traffic. And often this is, again, one of those things I hear from clients is they'll come to us and they'll say, we want a bunch of integration guides. We think that'd be really cool, but we also want those guides to drive tens of thousands of page views. And it's just not likely that that's going to happen unless you're a very established tool that already has lots of interest in the different things you're building. Some other things to think about. Budget, obviously. If you want to generate tens of thousands of page views, you can probably do that on a pretty lean budget. If you want to generate hundreds of thousands of page views a month, you are going to need to ramp up your content budget. I can give you ideas about what to spend, but it really depends a lot on your industry. It depends a lot on the competitiveness of the terms you're trying to target and the kinds of developers you want to reach. As you might imagine, reaching more senior developers at a high volume is extremely hard and pretty expensive. Whereas reaching a high volume of junior level engineers with content can be relatively cheap, because you have to write junior level content, and that's cheaper to produce in general. The team that you have available kind of line in line with the budget. Do you actually have the budget to hire writers, editors, tech reviewers? Do you have those people available? Are engineers actually committed to reviewing content or writing content for you, or do you need to outsource that? And again, that's where we come in with clients. Typically, we're the outsourced partner for that. But if you do it in-house, and a lot of our clients, they work with us for a while and then they move it in-house later, totally fair, but just be ready to budget the whole team and the operational expense that you need to run that. Do you actually have buy-in from leadership that content is a good idea and that your goals you're setting for that content are good? Do you know your customer profile really well? Because that's going to help you tailor the content that you write for that customer profile. And what is your required payback period? And we talked about that earlier with the goal setting, but basically things at the top of the funnel have the longest payback period. Things at the bottom of the funnel are the quickest payback period, but the volume is lower. So there's constant trade-off you have to make in content.